facts, stating what grievances you have against the broadcast, state when the broadcast took place, state who the broadcaster was, state your name and contact details for further communication by the broadcaster. Upon communication with the station, it is expected that the station will respond to the complaint within 14 days. Where you have not received a response or have received a response within 14 days but consider the response to be inadequate, you can address your complaint to the Director General, Independent Broadcasting Authority, Mass Media Complex, Ali Kinkata Road, P.O. Box 32475 Lusaka, or call 0211-250-589, or email complaints@iba.org.zm, or visit our website www.iba.org.zm.
The Independent Broadcasting Authority, promoting a pluralistic broadcasting industry in Zambia through fair, transparent, and effective regulation.
This is Capital FM 99.7, leader in talk. And not just talk, it's talk that's a game changer, changing your life positively. Capital FM, the talk leader.
You're stationed into number one talk radio station on 99.7. This is Capital FM. Welcome to Mid Morning Radio. My name is Wamba Sameta. In case you are just tuning in, our topic of discussion this morning, we're looking at the impact of the increase in fuel pump prices on the economy and SMEs with, of course, economist Kelvin Chisanga. We are live on Facebook as well, so you can follow the conversation live right there and leave your comments this morning. Mr. Sanga, it's always a pleasure having you here. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good morning and good morning, dear listeners.
All right.
Thank you.
Now, recently, the Energy Regulation Board did announce the upward of fuel pump prices, and we just want to find out what impact this will have on the economy and, of course, on SMEs as well. But just before we get into that, Mr. Stanga, I would want to get your sentiments on the recent Cabinet's approval on the issuance of a statutory instrument called the Energy Regulation 2024 that will govern the pricing of petroleum products in Zambia.
I think that is a good sentimentally, action, which I would recommend to say. I think looking at the current situation that we have actually been facing with a number of dramatic and dynamic changes that happens within the oil market. It's quite important that we need to put a framework which should be governing, the market expectations. Obviously, what we also need is a situation where we basically need also to look at how best can we widen the scope in terms of policy conditions as well. So consider that we are facing a lot of challenges, and also looking at having fuel moderation aspect on a monthly basis for some time. I think we need to just see how best we can work around certain policies like of that nature. Actually, also trying to make sure that we remove the cartels that come into the market as well. So the economic patterns, as far as oil is concerned, we create also cartels by way of leaving gaps within the certain sectors like energy in particular. So having to frame up a policy or deliberate on a policy that should be able to govern the fuel being a basic factor in this case, I think it's in order that we should be able to safeguard and make some bit of protection around this commodity. It's quite an important commodity for this country. Yes.
All right. Thank you for your sentiments. Getting to our topic of discussion, the impact of the increase of fuel prices on the economy and SMEs. The recent increase in the fuel prices has been a major topic of discussion. Can you provide some context on the current fuel price situation and its potential impact on the economy?
Okay, so as I hinted partly to say that fuel interplays as a basic factor to production and even much more to business investment activities. It is one of the biggest elements that sits right in between for us to actually even lubricate activities on the business side in terms of transportation and in terms of any other form of production. So the impact is really a direct one, which will also be a huge cascading effect on the pricing of most key commodities. And what we can see even from this level is that the more we trigger an increment or a price growth in the fuel, it also directs to say that we need to increase our final end products, meaning that there will be a strong pass-through effect, which will also go to the last end of our product, meaning the value chain is also distorted with that arrangement. So that's what it actually implies when it comes to this. So it has a strong telling effect on the economic factors.
How do you think the increase in fuel prices will affect the overall economy, particularly in terms of inflation and economic growth?
Yeah, so on the microeconomic level, obviously not just limited on the inflation or the exchange market or even any other, it also goes extensively to the issues of employment, meaning it also triggers an element of having an employment situation escalated from there, because when you are running a company and you know that your cost of operation has gone up, you want to relieve some people so that you can have a manageable cost value. And at the end of it, you find that the more you do such kind of arrangement where you offload some people from your payroll or from your company, it's not just an isolated case. It will be a case also with many others. So this actually is going to be a pattern that will be able to be employed with this arrangement, where there will be some price adjusted measures by most of the companies. So the effect that increment of fuel causes on the economy, one, it looks at inflation rate. It will be able to cost the aspect of capital resources to start going upward. Meaning what we are seeing in the case is that if there is an increment in fuel, I understand that fuel sits to be a big fundamental element in learning production. So meaning the cost of even accessing capital, accessing many others also goes up, because the fuel is what really plays as a biggest precursor in this case. So now, as it attacks or as it negatively affects the interest rate, it also affects the forex market, because even the cost of goods that are being brought in the country will also be able to have growth, because the growth that is being pushed on the fuel, it's translating into transport cost. At the end of it, obviously you have to remove an item from here to copper belt, from there to there. So with this essence, you're also making the cost of doing business becoming a little bit challenging. And this is where now the interest rate also will be affected. Then the aspect of inflation, we understand very well that inflation, the breeding point, mostly it's exchange market and a few many other compounding factors. So with the increment, we know that fuel also comes with an inflation pack. When we are importing anything, we literally import also the fraction of inflation. So as fuel comes with an increment, then the inflation also is triggering from that angle. So basically what I would say from the microeconomic perspective, it attacks the inflation rate, interest rate, employment, and foreign exchange as well. So this is what actually interplays from the fundamentals of microeconomic levels. Yes.
All right. With what you've mentioned, will those be the sectors that will be mostly affected? Because my next question was, what are some of the key sectors that will be mostly affected by the fuel prices, and how will they be impacted?
Okay, so the economy lands with the diesel and also lands mostly, basically the increment that has been triggered in petrochemical across the all section of or classes of fuel. We basically see it affecting more on the manufacturing, affecting more even the mining sector, being a core sector of this economy, which actually demands more of some of these requirements. It basically comes to liquefy the baseline economy. the baseline sectors of the economy, mining, obviously, when we are getting copper from one point to another, or even just digging copper, use some machinery which actually basically uses fuel. And not on that, also even the transport sector gets to be it most, because it basically uses fuel as the only ingredient to make that lubrication. And now we even now come down to the service itself. We find that the cost of bus fare and many others also get to be triggered. So fuel is basically a base of fact that interplays the verticals of the economy. No sector has been left without fuel. Even for you to come here, I'm sure you must have used fuel. For you to learn the genset or anything that you're trying to do, at some point, fuel is actually working out. So it basically attacks every key sectors of the economy. Yeah, but of course, there are sectors that are quite dependent on fuel. Others also just complement along the way. Yeah, so that's what really interplays from there. Yes.
All right. How do you think the government can mitigate the negative effects of the fuel prices increase on the economy?
Okay, so we had the stabilization fund, which was more or less like a recovery model for us to serve or effect whenever we have price shocks. Obviously, what we basically have seen that we have depleted that stabilization fund as of year or last year, November. Obviously, we haven't actually put modalities to see how we can come up with this system. I would say maybe that's what we need to now to drive and advise the government to say, look, there is a need for us to have a stabilization and recovery fund, which should be able to help when the market is changing. Obviously, we also have means of treatment around policy moderation. We have seen that there was a scrap off of about 25% of import duty, which also has been sustained from that angle. Despite all these measures, of course, what we also need to do is to look at how best can the government and the private sector come into partnership of some sort, so that we increase on the storage capacity. Current level, we do not have so much of the storage capacity that should be able to hold enough stock for even about 3 months or so. So that is also something that we need to look at. Maybe also the other way that we need to see to safeguard this supply or security of supply on fuel, we need the government to guarantee also with where fuel is coming from. We understand that government is far away from procurement of fuel, but there are times where we need some guarantees. So government need to guarantee some of these contracts so that we can sustainably have a contract that can run for a good test of period of time, other than the way we have actually been subjected to be getting fuel as and when we want to import. Because what we have done to ourselves really is the situation where we do most like hand-to-mouth kind of fuel model supply. What we need is now to have a stock that can be standing strategically, and also we need to have strong anchorage on the contractual arrangement, so that even when the global market changes, we should be able now to sustain that. I think that's what we can look at, and many other considerations that we can put into place.
All right.
Yes.
Let's get to the impact on the SMEs, which I think you have already partially touched on. Small and medium sized enterprises are often the backbone of the economy. How do you think the fuel prices increase will affect SMEs, particularly in terms of their operational costs and profitability? Okay,
so as I said in my preamble, the increment of fuel is basically something that negatively affects operations in many ways. For companies that are basically SME in nature, they have to scale down. They have to make some modalities to ensure that they remain afloat. And one of the measures that we can actually see, others that are looking forward to work around this, they are basically offloading some of the workers to just release that pressure. Imagine they remove about, maybe if it's a company of about 10 people, they remove about 2 people. So meaning that the money that they used to pay for these 2 people can be channeled to fuel. And that also does not give business sense when it comes to the way things are. Especially when we are looking at even the extension or way of making monthly review. What we have seen is, for businesses, it's even difficult for them to actually plan nicely, because you might find that the fuel increment this month may be this margin, next month may be that margin. So it becomes little difficult even to actually estimate the overall or aggregate, outlook on how the company should be able to perform. In the end, now what we'll be able to see is that the cost center on fuel will keep changing, and will not be able to actually see the business making profit from a small level point of view. But again, also, it does not inspire for people that are interplaying into this space. In the end now, as the government tries to develop that culture of SME, it becomes difficult for us, or for even business people actually to interplay into this, when there is always just this fuel review, and also it comes out to be on an increased side most of the times. So if we can have a moderation where we say, okay, in the next 3 months to 3 to 4 months, we'll have fuel which will anchor within this pricing, even when it comes to business, to sustain. But now, coming back to your question, the impact, obviously, yes, it will touch on the investment, which maybe a small company has invested. It would also touch on the savings. So meaning it will deplete the savings or investment portfolio that has actually been put in place for a small business. Much more even when you go to an individual, maybe by extension, you find that they will deplete their disposable income, because you have to, foot or fork out a bit more units for you to meet the cost of fuel. So basically what we see is a situation where we have a very challenging situation when the increment is going upward. It means it comes with distortion in the market.
Right. A great explanation right there. But what are some strategies that SMEs can employ to caution themselves against the effects of fuel prices increment?
I think when it comes to planning, there's a need for them to have contagious planning. Of course, understand that we have got a twin challenge within the energy sector.
Yes, because it's not predictable what will come in the coming month, whether it will be up or down.
Yeah. So now, before I come to that, we've got twin challenges within the energy sector. We've got electricity issues, and we've got fuel issues.
Sure.
So now, companies should now bring forth model of resilience to ensure that even when they are making plans for the next month or next calendar year, they should be able to look at a way in which they can have safety net in terms of expenditure, and also trying to make sure that they keep monitoring the use of their fuel. For example, those that are even heavily using pool cars, or those that are on the side of transportation, making sure they track the use of fuel with that prudence. Otherwise, it becomes difficult if you are not just monitoring, because you just end up spending anyhow. But with the model of monitoring and evaluation, which should be able to be involved into this, because obviously, if you are an accountant for a company, you need to know your cost center on fuel, and you need to make sure that fuel covers a certain period of time. If the fuel being put today finishes this afternoon, which maybe goes for 2 weeks, then you start questioning what is happening. So basically, there must be productive movement. And the idea also of controlling fuel should be tight. So we need to tighten our belt, in short, at that scale level of business. And ensure that even when it is a bigger scale enterprise, I think there must be some models also of monitoring how the fuel is being used. To some extent, some companies have even contracted this tracking company that tracks on fuel use, so that it actually remains within the operational scales. Otherwise, you find yourself losing out if you are also not monitoring this source of material. Yes.
All right. Are there any government initiatives or support mechanisms that can help SMEs navigate the challenges posed by the fuel price increases?
Well, yes, we understand that there has been some policy suspensions, which the government has really, intervened in so many ways. Obviously, I hinted to say that there was a scrap of about 25% of import duty, which is actually being sustained even up to now. If that is the case, would have found it, if it wasn't the case, rather, would have found it a very difficult situation because fuel by nature would have reached about 40 kwacha per liter. But because of the policy instrumentation protecting the growth within the industry, it's what actually has been sustained there. Then again, also with what is happening today, the markets are not speaking very well, both local and the international markets are not speaking very well when it comes to what is happening with fuel. Like in the case of what has been triggered on the increase side, somehow it can be justifiable in a way, but how this has come to be, it's a situation where we have seen that despite having a relative depreciation that we have witnessed in the local currency, it cannot warrant us to increase because it's only 3.5% of loss that we have made on kwacha. Then when you look at the international market, there is no that sharp changing that we can see within the energy market. Obviously, the moderate aspect of performance is still sustained from there, and the demand pressure is not showing so much. So what I would say is that what has really triggered the increment or the marginal increment that we're seeing in the fuel is because we want to sustain the market so that we can also avoid having cartels and other bad effects, even much more as we go into next year, because next year we have to prepare well, so that we have a very soft landing when it comes to activities of next year. And much to this also, I think that the aspect to do with the fuel stabilization has to be done with some moderation of this nature. But we are only calling maybe for a long-term measure in terms of trying to make sure that the pricing model sustains somehow. Of course, we understand the composition that really interplays with fuel importation, but we need now to sit down because it cannot just take 3 years now doing the same thing every month. Yeah, so as we go into next year, it will be making 3 years of our fuel monthly reviews, which is not supposed to be the case because that has caused a serious misnomer to the economic factors. And if it continues like this, then it becomes difficult because, again, as the inflation is escalating, fuel is also contributing badly to that. So we need to see how best we can moderate this. And then it also comes out to be working on a parallel side when you look at the monetary policy that the central bank is setting. So meaning we'll keep going upward. And the more we go upward, the more we are tightening the money supply in the economy, meaning the credit basket will be able to fail to actually perform as we should be able to see. And already the economic factors, the profile itself is not speaking of a good nature. Yes.
Are there any opportunities for innovation and entrepreneurship that can arise from the fuel price increases?
Yes, so now with the deliberation of the government and the key stakeholders, including even the regulator, I'm sure it's a situation where we are now trying to look at energy diversity. The energy diversity aspect is now what is interplaying. We've heard of biofuel, we've heard of so many other ways, and much to this also, there are issues to do with electric cars, which also are quietly interplaying to some of these, economic mixed. So what we see on the table is a situation where we have relatively a very good uptake when it comes to energy shaping, especially this year that we have faced a number of things that the economy is facing. Extensively on the side of electricity, we have seen that there is also a policy that came into action, which is now allowing the free access where you're able to produce your own power and you can export part of your power that you're producing. So, meaning what we see in terms of deliberation and the activeness of the Ministry of Energy in regards to giving updates on whatever is happening within the energy cycles, that shows and demonstrates commitment, which is actually a key factor as well. And much to this also is that we are seeing that energy now has opened up a lot of, key aspect of appetizing investments, which should be able now to be driven going forward. And much to this also is that I think even the deliberation that we see on energy has really expanded as compared to the 2019 energy national policy, which was left hanging. So meaning we have done a lot of extension, and we are now doing innovation from there. So yes, I would say innovation is being there, and it's something that is working out very well. Yes.
All right. Yeah. How can individuals and households adjust their behavior to cope with the fuel price increases?
So wasteful expenditure should be curtailed at all level of interest. Obviously, we understand that when you are having a disposable income, it should go into meaningful and productive engagement. So if I know that I don't need to go to this place, I would rather use a phone other than just driving there or getting on a bus. So meaning I'm saving somehow, because you see, just one movement per day from maybe say Charleston to town, I spend 100 kwacha. And you know that the work that I'm able to do, I can equally do it at home. Just to give a call, I will take that 100 kwacha into talk time and save that. So I think we just need to go into saving culture, which should be able to work out, look at the opportunity cost when you are exposed to matters of this nature. So if it even goes down to transportation and many other fuel-related issues, I think it's important that you just need to weigh options. Yeah, so that we see the applicable model that you can use in that sense, yes.
All right. Yeah. What advice would you give policymakers, business leaders, and individuals on how to navigate the challenges posed by the fuel price increases?
Okay, so the first thing before anything else, I think I would urge the government to look at the aspect of Ndeni. I know Ndeni has been, for a lack of better word, I would say, has been trashed into an oil marketing company. We can look for another model to see how best we bring it back as a refinery, and also ensuring that we lower the cost from there. If it's not that element or model of business, maybe we need to now look at key private sector stakeholders who should partner with government to establish storage facilities. These storage facilities that we have currently from Mansa, Chipata, and Lusaka, they are not enough. We need to have enough, even the one in Peak as well, we need to have enough storage capacity that should be able to hold the fuel stock even for a period of 90 days, so that we can look at all those factors. Then when it comes to the aspect of policy action, I think we need to look at electric cars. Of course, we understand that there has been some good policy treatment when it comes to importation. We need to keep revising on that so that we can also widen the gap, or rather push up a lot of factors around these, commodities as well, so that we can have more vehicles that can interplay with the electrical system. Then also we need to give good incentives to those that are running filling stations, who also have, extension of electric vehicle charging system. Those should also start receiving incentives so that we can get more and more participation from that end. Then when it comes to the stakeholders out there, I think it's important also that the AOMC should also be transparent, like the way the police has now come to make that compliance for them. I think we need to have an open book when it comes to learning key commodities in the country, because you see, fuel, as I mentioned, it sits right in between everything. So if we have players that are interplaying, or especially the economic agents who are interplaying and they're not honest enough, I think it brings a lot of distortion. I would also love that the president within the Oil Marketing Association, Dr. Mubanga, and many others should now find an interface with the government most of the times. And they should not speak a different language. So those are factors that need to be undertaken from there. I think, building Zambia, we should not criticize even economic fundamentals. We just need to work collaborative together and build this nation. At the end of it, we are building for our children. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
What are your final thoughts, and what do you have to say on the impact of the fuel price increases on the economy and SMEs?
Well, my final statement here is that I think I'm still calling on government through the regulator to stabilize fuel pricing model. I understand it's an issue of checking every time when there is when it's just month end, they want to know, and sometimes yes, it can work out like that, and if they delay, of course, a certain thing can happen. We just need to see how best they can work out a model that can be sustainable. We need a deep sense of security of supply based on the moderate pricing structure, which should stand firmly there. The changes that we see are not encouraging. And for the good 2 years, now going to 3 years next year, it does not show any seriousness that we should be able to look at. So we need to find a better way in which we can modulate fuel pricing. And much more, if it involves fuel levy, I think let's make fuel levy to be there so that it can actually interplay also on the side of stabilization. Meaning whatever you collect as fuel levy should be going to a chamber of stabilization, so that when the market changes, we're able to use that money and save everyone from effects. Then on the SME side, I think it's time to tighten the belt. We should not go beyond our limits in terms of expenditure. I think even the expenditure columns around most of these SME should be more conscious toward building investment and toward also making sure that the cost factors within the operations do not keep changing. And we need also to be very alert whenever we know that there will be some changes that will happen. Sometimes also it can also go down to them, if they have got capacity, to have a way in which they can do some contractual arrangement with the fuel players in the market. For example, you go to a fuel supplier, lock your pricing, maybe buy in bulk, let them store for you. I think those are models that can also be used if that's the case, if you have got capacity to do that. Yes. Yeah.
All right. Mrs. Sanga, thank you so much for making time this morning. We do appreciate you coming through.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
All right.
Sure.
My guest this morning on the mid-morning show was economist Kelvin Chisanga. We're getting to look at the impact of the increase in fuel palm prices on the economy and SMEs. And of course, this is where we end our interview for this morning. But do stay tuned to Capital FM. We do have more for you right here on Mid-Morning Show. Good morning.
Capital FM on 99.